in this video, I'm going to go over the basic slashes and the basic thrusts. Okay, in this video, I'm going to demonstrate it with multiple different objects, but for the majority of it, I'm going to use a pen, since that is the most likely household object that most everybody will have that they can practice with. So again, when I'm holding this pen, the first time I'm going to go through it, I'm going to go through it with a normal grip. So that would be, if my thumb is up, the blade would also be pointed up. So we're thinking that this silver part, the little clip of my pen, would be the blade. So I'm going to go through the basic slashes. So this would be where you are cutting with the blade, leading with the edge of your blade at your opponent. Okay, so there are 8 that I'm going to go through. So starting with your hands up, you want to make sure that your blade is not too close to your face to where you could accidentally come back and hit yourself in the head. Okay, so my hands are in front of my face and my blade is away, so that way if my hand gets hit or I'm trying to block something, I don't accidentally hit myself in the face or stab my chest or anything like that. Okay, so my hands are up, my other hand is open, so that way I'm ready to defend or parry and use it for any purpose needed. Okay, so my hands are up. So the first one that I'm going to do is I'm slicing from my shoulder to my hip, so I'm going down at an angle. That's number 1. Now I'm going to do the same thing, but I'm going to go from the other direction. So I'm coming from my opposite shoulder, my empty hand, down to my hip. Okay, that's 1 and 2, so you're diagonal downwards. 3 and 4, you're going sideways. So I'm slicing, this would be right at the stomach, slicing sideways. 3 and 4, 1 from each direction. Now for 5 and 6, you're going upwards at an angle, so I'm starting at my hip, and I'm slicing up to my shoulder. Slice up, slice up. So this could be for under the chin. This could be going, if you are smaller than your opponent, you're slicing up as you move out of the way, any sort of upward at an angle. So again, that is 1 through 6. So 1 is going from my shoulder to my hip, downwards on each side. 3 and 4 is going side to side, 1 on each. And then 5 and 6 is going from my hip up to my shoulder. And then I bring it back down to my hip, and again, up to my shoulder. 7 and 8 is I'm swinging downwards. So 7 is I'm swinging straight down, so I'm slicing downwards. I can do it on this side of my body, and I can do it on the other side of my body. 8 is I'm going upwards. So 8, I go up on this side of my body, and I'm going to make a big old circle and go up on the other side of my body. So that is what we call the 8 angles of attack. So you have 8 basic angles or 8 basic slashes that you can use in almost every single situation. So again, going through these angles, starting with my blade in a normal grip, on my shoulder, my hands are up. 1 and 2 is down to the hips. 3 and 4 is straight across. Slice, slice. 5 and 6 are going up at an angle to your shoulder from your hip. So hip to shoulder. 7 and 8, you're going straight down. So 7, I'm going down, 1 on each side. So I'm going to go down on this side, slice, down on the other side, slice. 8 will be on the other side of your body, going up, and then again on the opposite side, up. So 7 is down, and 8 is striking upwards. So this could be anything under the chin or slicing down at the collarbone or anything like that. Let's do that again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 on one side, 7 on the other side, 8 on one side, 8 on the other side. And you should end back where you started. So I'm back in my guard stance with my hands up. So when you are doing this, you might have noticed that I was moving my feet around and shuffling my body. So for angles 1 and 2, those would be strikes where you're moving in towards your opponent. So you're stepping forward for those angles. So any of the footwork that you do can be used with any which angle. It's more of knowing when you need to use them. So when you are stepping forward for angles 1 and 2, that would be you closing the distance to get closer to your opponent, maybe get out of the way of a strike, or maybe close the distance so that way you can counterattack any sort of oncoming strike. So angles 1 and 2, you step forward. 3 and 4 would be you evading a strike and moving out of the way. So that's why you're moving side to side. 5 and 6 would be you are getting away, creating space, maybe to evade, maybe just to disengage or create distance and create time for yourself to figure out what you need to do next. So 5 and 6, you're stepping back at an angle, which creates distance between you and your opponent. 7 and 8, you are doing both. So you're stepping forward and you're stepping back. So again, when you step forward, that would be closing the distance. You're getting in closer to your opponent, which may put you at an advantage, or it may be so that way you can get in and counterattack any sort of attack that they have thrown at you. When you're stepping backwards, again, that can be to create range, or it can be used to get away from an attack. So I'm going to go through it again. This time when I go through it, I'm going to go through it in a reverse grip, and I'm going to walk through the different footwork that I'm doing. So this time when I'm holding it, I'm going to hold it upside down to where the clip of my pen is on the bottom of my hand towards my pinky. This clicker would be the point of the blade, and what I'm holding right here in my hand would be the handle. So when I do this, I'm going to have to turn my hand so that way the blade is slicing every single time. So I don't want to lead with the point of my weapon for this because we are working on slashes, which means you're slicing. So when I do my first angle, originally when we did it, our hand was going just like this. It was going downwards. Okay? So you cannot, if you are wanting to do a slice, you cannot do that same sort of motion. That would be a thrust because you're leading with the point of your blade. So you have to turn your hands, that way you would be slicing through. So my hand, I'm leading with my thumb. My thumb is pointed down, slice, 1. And then 2, I'm pointing my thumb down again, slice, 2. 3 and 4, again, I'm leading with my thumb, so that way the blade would be slicing. When I turn my hand and I lead with the point right here, that would be a thrust. So I'm leading with my thumb, slice, slice. And then again for 5 and 6, I'm leading with my thumb, slice. Again, thumb, slice. Now for 7 and 8, when you guys do these, you have to turn your hand the opposite direction of what you were doing previously with it held in a normal grip. So I'm leading with my thumb, I slice down on one side, and then I bring my hand all the way back up and I'm slicing down on the other side. So again, I'm leading with my thumb when I do this. I'm slicing upwards to the other side of my body, slice upwards. And then I end on the same side with my hands up. So that might get a little confusing when I'm not using a real blade because it's hard to tell where the blade is or where the edge of the knife would be. So I'm going to demonstrate it real quick in a normal and a reverse grip using a training blade so that way you guys can kind of better see how it would look. So blade, point, this is a training blade. 1, 2, 3, 4, step back 5, 6, 7, straight down on one side and on the other, 8, up on one side and up on the other. Now my hands are back up. Okay, now I'm going to flip it. I'm in a reverse grip, so I'm going to try to get this blade to slice every single time at my opponent. So if this would be where my thumb is going to lead for all of these strikes. 1, 2. Again, 1 and 2, I'm stepping forward. So whatever side I'm on, if I'm on this side, I'm stepping with that foot. I'm stepping in, slicing down. And then I'm doing the same thing on the other side. Stepping in towards my opponent, slicing down. So I'm stepping forward at an angle, kind of making a V with my feet. So again, 1, 2. I step sideways, 3, 4. I'm stepping back at an angle, like a backwards V. Slice up at an angle to my shoulder, slice up at an angle to my shoulder. Now I'm on top of my head. When I go for my 7, I have to turn my hand so that way I'm leading with my thumb. Slice down, lead with my thumb, slice down. Now for 8, I'm going upwards. I'm leading with my thumb, slice up to the other side of my body, slice up. All of those I'm leading with my thumb. So those are your slashes from a normal grip and a reverse grip. Now going into your thrusts. There are 3 primary thrusts that I'm going to go over. So I'm going to go over this first with the training blade, and then I'll go over it with a pen so that way you can see how that works. So with a training blade in a normal grip, I'm leading with my point for these. So the first one would be at the center of the stomach, and I thrust straight forward. So I'm starting at my hip. My blade is in same side hip, so my blade is in this hand. I'm on that same side. I thrust straight forward, leading with the point of the blade. My second thrust, I'm going to bring it up to my opposite shoulder. So I'm going from this side to the opposite side of my body. Now I'm going to lead with a point thrust. This would be on this side of the body, downwards at the head, at the chest, at the collarbone, anything like that. So 1 to the shoulder, 2. Now I'm going to go to the opposite shoulder, that same side shoulder. I'm pulling it backwards. My hand is staying in front of my face, leading with the point for my third one. So you're making like a triangle with these 3 thrusts. 1 in the center and then 1 on each side. So again, 1 to the shoulder, 2 to the shoulder, and then 3. 1, 2, 3. Those are your 3 primary thrusts. Now, in a reverse grip, you're going to turn your hand and you're leading with your point. So when you're doing this, when we were doing our slashes, you were leading with your thumb. For this one, you're leading with your pinky. So my blade is leading, thrusting, so I'm turning my body and I thrust. So again, this would be at the center of the stomach. I'm on that same side hip, thrust straight forward. I'm going to turn my hand to where my palm is down, my thumb is pointed towards me. I'm bringing it to the opposite side shoulder. I'm thrusting, leading with the blade on this side of the body, thrust. Now I'm going to bring it to that same side shoulder, other shoulder, leading with the point, thrust, straight down. Okay, so depending on your opponent's size and depending on where you're aiming, depends on the angle of your blade. So if my opponent is shorter than me and I'm aiming for the collarbone or something, that'll be more of a downward thrust than a straight forward thrust. If I am aiming maybe for the side of the body, maybe I step to the side and my opponent's taller than me and I'm aiming for the rib cage or the kidney or something, I would be doing a more of a horizontal thrust. Okay, so what you can do to practice this is if you have a partner that you're comfortable training with, you can practice using a noodle or a soft object and practice how this would be on a real person. So if you would like to practice this with a trusted partner and use a noodle or a soft object, this is what it would look like. So I'm going to change the height of Bob's, that way you guys can see how that would look. So right now, me and Bob are about the same height. When I'm holding my blade, if I were to do these first 3 thrusts, that first one would be straight to the gut. The second one would either go to the side of the head or towards the collarbone. That third one, same thing, collarbone, neck, head on the opposite side. So that's how those 3 thrusts would look. 1, 2, 3. When you practice with an opponent, you can just tap the end of your noodle to your opponent. 1, 2, 3. Keeping that other hand up to protect your face from any oncoming strikes or be ready for any sort of counter offense that you may need to do. Now from a reverse grip. So when I flip it, I'm going to do the same thing. I want to keep this hand up because when I'm turning my body, it's becoming a little more vulnerable to sort of attacks. So I want to keep this hand up. This could also be me framing or doing some sort of punch. So I can punch here. From that, I'm here and I go and I turn and I thrust. So that's what that hand being up can do. Or it can be a frame to create space. That way they don't come closer to you and you maintain your range. So this hand's up, I thrust to the stomach, leading with the point of the blade. I turn, this would be again to the collarbone, to the neck, to the face, to the side of the head, and then to the other side. Boom. Those are the 3 thrusts from a reverse grip. Okay, so now that Bob is a little bit taller, he's about a head taller than me, I'm going to demonstrate these 3 thrusts for if you are shorter than your opponent, because if this is the size difference between you and your opponent, or if you know you're just a smaller person, then you're most likely not going to be doing a lot of head strikes because you won't be able to reach. And by trying to reach the head, you make yourself vulnerable to any sort of strike by trying to do that. So when I'm doing these thrusts, again, the first one is still going to be to the body. So I would thrust straight forward at the stomach, but I just kind of have to angle my strike upwards, because if I go straight forward, I would be hitting them in the leg. Now, if you can obviously do this strike to the crotch if you are fighting a male opponent. That is an option, to thrust straight forward to the inner thigh or to the crotch. That's the second 2 would be more to the kidney on either side, or the rib cage, or any sort of vital organs over here. So when I do my second one, I would pull to my shoulder and then thrust sideways into the stomach. 1, 2. Now, depending on your height difference, you might be able to also aim for the chest. So when I do this, I could go to the stomach and then pull and aim for the chest on either side. Now, obviously, you're not going to have pinpoint accuracy if you were using this in a real fight. So any sort of contact, any sort of pain that is inflicted will help you get out of the situation the fastest and the most safe. Going back to the slashes now. So I'm going to do the slashes again, but I'm going to show them on Bob. So either 1 and 2 can be to the face, or they can be the collarbone, shoulder area. 3 and 4 would be to the stomach. 1, 3, 4, 3, 4. If you can reach, these could also be to the head. 3, 4, horizontal strikes. 5 and 6 would be upwards on either side. 5, 6. Now 7 would be downwards on either side of the head, or straight on top of the head, depending on what weapon you have. So it could be here, 7, 7, and then 8 would be for under the chin or to the groin area. Doing 8 anywhere on the front of the body to the abdominal would be hard. So 8 would be to the groin or coming right here under the chin. Just like that. So in this video, I went over the basic 8 slashes and the 3 basic thrusts from a normal grip and a reverse grip.